Everybody ready? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Monday, March 6, 2023 West Fargo City Commission meeting. I'd please ask you to note that Commissioner Simmons is joining us this evening by Zoom. And also, I would ask everybody in the room to silence their cell phones, except for emergency personnel. With that, please join me in a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next order of business is to approve the order of the agenda. It has been distributed.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the order of the agenda as presented for this evening, March 6th, 2023. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Next order is to approve the minutes of February 21st, 2023. It is on pages 3 through 5 in the packet. It has been distributed.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of February 21st, 2023 as distributed. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Item E is the building permits. Building permits has been distributed, is on pages 6 through 8. Commissioners, any questions or suggestions?
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the building permits report as distributed on pages 6 through 8. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Next order is the consent agenda. We have items A through E. Before we go through the consent agenda, Mrs. Fisk, I would call on you to, we have the language clarification for item B, the resolution modifying the water rates, which we did not have some of that language in last City Commission. So for the public, please, would you explain what we're doing this evening?
Thank you, Commission President and Commissioners. This particular item is an item that should have been included with the prior resolution that you did that raised water rates 40 cents per thousand. We neglected to add the 40 cent per thousand amount onto the rate over 20,000 gallons used monthly. So this will just make it equitable.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Fisk. Again, Commissioners, the consent agenda this evening is items A through E, pages starting on 9 and ending on page 33.
Just one item on item D.
Please, Commissioner.
Is that supposed to be 825 East Beacon Drive? Is that a typo there?
I believe that should be Beaton Drive.
sure we
Yes,
have it?
thank you.
Have it right for the minutes.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Olson, is there anything additional on the consent agenda?
Make motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as distributed. Items A through E. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Next order of business is the regular agenda. Item number 1 is a public hearing and the first reading of Title 4 zoning ordinance amendment regarding daycare uses. We're going to call on Mr. Aaron Nelson, the Director of Planning for the City of West Fargo. It is on pages 34 through 52 in the packet. Good evening, Mr. Nelson, and welcome.
Good evening, Commission President Dardis and Commissioners. So item 1 is a request to hold a public hearing and approve the first reading of a zoning ordinance amendment having to do with the regulation of child care centers in the city's zoning code. This amendment was recommended by the Child Care Subcommittee that was established by the City Commission a couple of months back. And the purpose of the amendment is to reduce the zoning regulatory barriers to providing child care services in the City of West Fargo. Included in your packet is a copy of the ordinance, which I have on your screen as well. In brief summary, if approved, a provisional use permit from the city would no longer be required for a home daycare of 8 to 12 children, which would instead be allowed by right. And additionally, standalone daycare centers would be allowed in additional zoning districts, more zoning districts than they currently are allowed in, either by right or through a conditional use permit process. It should be noted that all daycare providers would still need to comply with all applicable licensing requirements. Nothing in this ordinance amendment would change that. The proposed ordinance was recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission at their last meeting. And again, the recommended action for you tonight is to hold the public hearing and to approve the first reading of the ordinance. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have for staff.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Any questions for Mr. Nelson? With that, we're going to close the regular agenda and move into the public hearing for the first reading of Title 5, Title 4, zoning ordinance amendment regarding daycare uses. We are now in the public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this item? Again, we are discussing the first reading of the Title IV zoning ordinance amendment regarding daycare uses. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this item? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. We move back into the regular agenda. Commissioners, your thoughts, please. Commissioner George.
Just a quick comment. I'd just like to thank Aaron for his work on this. I appreciate everybody who's helped with this child care initiative. It's one more piece of the puzzle to just help reduce barriers and make it easier for daycares in the city of West Fargo.
And I would remind the public that Commissioner George was one of 2 of our commissioners that was on the subcommittee. Who was with you?
Commissioner Simmons.
Commissioner Simmons was the second one.
I have a comment.
Commissioner Olson.
When I first read through all of this and I saw what was being lined out, at first blush, it was like, oh, we're going to wipe out promoting public health, safety, welfare, morals, comfort, convenience, appearance, and all that kinds of good stuff. And I thought, what are we doing? Because we want that. But until I got deeper into the actual body of all the little things, like the limits, the hours of operation, where they had to be picked up, where they had to be dropped off, all that kinds of stuff. Then the light went off. But at first blush, it was like, we don't want to get rid of that provision.
No, agreed.
But it's good work.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Comments, questions, concerns? What's your pleasure, commissioners?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second.
Commissioner Simmons seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the first reading of the Title IV zoning ordinance amendment regarding daycare uses as presented by Mr. Nelson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Item number 2 is the first reading of Ordinance 1220 in regards to 13-1522, trucks prohibited on certain streets, truck routes established, maps and signs required. And this is being presented by Commissioner Mandy George. It's on pages 53 to 54. Commissioner George.
Okay, well, this started several months ago when we had an individual come forward with some issues that they saw with this ordinance. So we decided to create a team with the city and see what kind of revisions we could make and what kind of changes to make it easier. So I'd like to invite Dustin and Wes to the podium. They're the ones who did the majority of the work on these changes, and I'd like to invite them to speak on this.
Thank you, Commissioner George. We're welcoming to the podium Mr. Dustin Scott.
Thank you, Commissioner President Dardis. Thank you, Commissioner George. Really the bulk of the work here was done by our traffic enforcement officer, Mr. Wesley Booth. He was instrumental in drafting some of the changes that would certainly help provide clarity to this ordinance. So I defer any technical questions to him, and also would ask that he introduce himself.
Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioner and Commission. I'm Officer Wesley Booth. I'm the traffic enforcement officer for the West Fargo Police Department, and I help revise this ordinance just to make it easier to read for the public. So it just makes it a little bit more clear on how the city stands in regards to trucks and truck routes.
Thank you, Officer Booth. Commissioners, any questions of either of them? Commissioner George.
Yes, I did not see in the packet the information on the signage. Do you have that available to show, or the information handy on that with the cost of the signs and what we were discussing with that?
Thank you, Commissioner George. It's not a part of this packet. We wanted to prepare something for our CIP, an actual project. We can certainly bring that forward on its own, or we can bring that forward with the CIP, but it is certainly worth mentioning during this meeting that Officer Booth also suggested about a dozen or more signs be strategically placed throughout town to help, again, with the clarity of where the truck routes are and where certain types of trucks can be. So certainly a very important component of this, but our plan is to bring it forward as a capital improvement project. It'll be a relatively low expense in comparison to other capital improvement projects, but felt that that was necessary to be part of that plan.
Would we see that at the second reading, Mr. Scott?
We can certainly bring that forward at the next meeting. Yep.
Any additional questions, Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah, you'll have to forgive me. I'm new to the commission since this was originated. So are trucks driving through our streets a big issue? I know that occasionally I'll see some go through my neighborhood to delivery spots, but I'm just curious how big of an issue it is that is causing this ordinance change or the discussion here tonight.
Well, in general, trucks driving through town are certainly something to be regulated, if you will. They're a vital part of our community, but at the same time, we have to regulate the size, the type of trucks, and so we've had an ordinance in place for several years. We have allowable truck routes. What really spurred this is some point last year, there was a driver who was cited for departing from the truck route. It led to some discussions at a commission meeting and specifically some confusion over some of the language in the ordinance, which is what prompted this particular revision. But in terms of, is it an issue? I could certainly let Officer Booth tell you how frequent, he is dealing with traffic issues with trucks.
So I don't have exact numbers or anything, but I do get, more specifically in the spring and summer and fall, less so in the winter, I do get several complaints of trucks driving through residential neighborhoods from a lot of residents in town. I do stop a lot of trucks that are off truck route because there are certain exceptions that they have to fall within to be allowed off truck routes. Every time I'm stopping them, I'm asking them the proper questions to determine whether or not they're inside of those. A lot of those delivery trucks do fall within those exceptions if they are, coming from the closest truck route or they're between deliveries within the city. But I think it is enough of a problem where the ordinance is certainly needed just to help prevent traffic backlog and traffic safety issues because they take up a lot of road and they can certainly block a lot of drivers' views on those smaller residential roads.
Thank you.
Commissioner Olson.
So, Officer Booth, within the item 1D where it says that trucks must stay within the city limits of West Fargo between stops for this exception to apply, how tough is that to enforce, to make sure that they didn't leave and come back and,
So I used to work in LTL, less than truckload deliveries. Every truck driver that is delivering for LTL should have some kind of either a packet or if it's a digital form of their deliveries and stops, and they're usually in order. So I always ask them where are they coming from, and where are they headed to, and when they tell me, then I ask them for their delivery receipts or their route packet or wherever they have. It's called something different in most different companies, but then they're usually able to show me that. And that's pretty much all I have to verify with, is if they said they're going from here to here and it makes sense. But if they're saying, if the route they're telling me doesn't make sense, it has to be the most direct route. And if I know, well, you had to kind of go out of your way to come onto this street to go over there, I can kind of verify that. That's just kind of on the officer to know their own city. But all I have to verify with the truck driver is those receipts that they have to prove it. And if they don't have those, then
will this make this ordinance change, if it's approved, make it easier for you to enforce it? Or is it going to, you know,
it'll make it easier for truck drivers to understand it better,
Okay.
because a lot of them were having issues understanding that they couldn't leave the city and then come back in. The previous wording just kind of made it a little vague, and I think this makes it a little bit more clear on exactly that they have to stay within the city limits for that exception to apply.
I guess my concern is we're gonna have trucks, delivery trucks, you know, and I don't know where a UPS or a FedEx truck fits into this, if they're fall under that regulation, or we're looking at something like a big, you know, furniture delivery truck or something like that, cutting through town. But I'm just looking at, safety in our neighborhood, especially in the core area where we have narrower streets and lots more, you know, kids darting in and out. Plus, it could deteriorate our streets quicker than we anticipated, and now we're gonna have to repair our streets, and then we're going to have to pay for that somehow, and guess where we go to get the funds to pay for that? So I'm just have concerns that way, if we loosen it up too much.
Well, just if I could say something, I don't think this is loosening it up.
Okay.
I think it's just making it a little bit easier for people to understand, because it doesn't change how it's enforced, because I'm going to enforce it the same way I was enforcing it in the past. It just makes it a little bit easier to read for people coming from outside.
Okay.
Any additional questions or comments, commissioners? Okay. Your pleasure, please.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the first reading of ordinance 1220 in regards to 13-1522, trucks prohibited in certain streets, truck routes established. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you both for your work on this. Thank you, Commissioner George, and Commissioner Simmons also. Item number 3 is a request approval of changes in the implementation of our frog pretreatment program policy, fats, rags, oils, and grease. Boy, you really have the fun stuff today, don't you, Matt? Mr. Matt Andrick, Director of Public Works for the City of West Fargo. It's on pages 55 to 62 in your package. Good evening, Mr. Andrick, and welcome.
Good evening, Commission President and Commissioners. Like the Commission President said, tonight, trying to get approval for our frog program. That's the fats, rags, oils, and grease. And those 4 things really kind of mess up our sewer system if they're not kind of checked. And what this does, our pretreatment specialist, Brandon, went through and just kind of consolidated everything that was already in the ordinances, kind of in one more usable document, and just kind of defines everything. And this is more of a preventative and proactive measure than getting out there and then instead of having the violations after the fact, we're trying to get and be there and be proactive on this. And then with this, it also defines violation enforcement and kind of more defines and outlines what happens and what would the businesses expect if they do have certain violations with this program. And then it'll also create a permit and a permit fee to go with this for the quarterly inspections that we're proposing. And basically, these quarterly inspections are to, I don't know if you can see the monitor here, is to eliminate these areas here, like the fats and oils that get into these areas in the manholes, and we have to go in there and either steam them out or flush them out. And another one really is the big flushable rags that everybody markets that are flushable that aren't really flushable. So, and one of these repairs, you're anywhere between $1,000 and $10,000 that we would have to go out there and spend. And what we're looking at doing now is in creating a permit and requesting approval for a $200 annual fee for that permit to be charged to the businesses that have this to cover basically we'll just cover our expenses for the guy to go out there 4 times a year to inspect this as a proactive measure. So for a business, then they would have to cover the cost of these repairs. If we can go back, we'll track it back down the line to see where that came from, make sure their grease trap is working properly or their oil or separator is working properly. And if it's not, they're not in compliance. And that's what would cost something like this, and they would end up paying for that repair. $200 a year for businesses, pretty good insurance instead of paying $5,000 or $10,000 on a repair. So that's kind of what we're looking for. What we'd have to do, if this is approved, is create the permits, and we're looking at starting this program June 1, which should be halfway through the year. So, of course, that permit fee would be prorated. We would spend the time between now and June 1st. Brandon would be going around to talking to these businesses, educating them on the program, and just kind of doing the communication with these businesses so they know exactly what's going on and what we're looking for going forward and why we're doing it and why we're being proactive. So I guess for that, I'll ask for the approval for implementing the changes in our FROG program and setting a fee for $200 annually for this permit. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Andrick. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Anderson?
Do we have the head count and the time, the bandwidth to do these checks or these inspections currently? Or are we going to have to end up hiring more people down the line? I'm just trying to look at future implications to the budget here as I look at this.
Yeah, no, our pre-treatment specialist will have time to be able to do these checks. That was part of it when we we're going through. He was kind of drafting this up, making sure that he would be able to have that time to go to do that. So it would not come with any employee requests.
Okay, thank you.
If you, excuse me, but if you have, you find someone that's, their oil or their fat is going directly into the sewer, do you have the capacity or do we have the authority to shut them down? If this,
Currently, we do. It's just in our ordinance, we have to go through a few more steps, it's
steps?
a few more steps to get it done currently, and we have in the past. These are pictures of violations that we've had in town too. So, it's in the ordinance. We can go through that and say they're not compliance, and then basically say, okay, this is what the cost is, and we have to write everything down. This just basically clarifies it a little bit more, makes it a little bit more concrete, so they understand exactly what they would be on the hook for if they had a violation.
Very good, thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, Commissioner Simmons, please.
Thank you. Matt, how many businesses do we have that we would have to go through?
I don't have an exact count right now. Basically, when we're looking at that, anything with a grease trap, so you're looking at just about every restaurant, bar, anything, that food service industry that has those certain.
So then how do you know that your guy has enough time to hit all these?
He has the number. When he was going through, he knows exactly what it is. That was one of the things I guess I skipped, so I apologize for that. But Brandon, when he's going through that, he has the exact number of the businesses that this would affect.
Do you have any, I guess I'm kind of wondering before I support this, like, how, I mean, any idea of how many? Because you take that times probably how much to send a guy out there, it's probably $100 at least, depending upon how long he's gonna be there. And you've got 400 of these, there's no way he's gonna have time to do it.
Each one is about an hour, so that's kind of how we base the $200 fee off, is about $50 a time is what we kind of would cover his time to get out there to do that, within the city. And, yeah, I want to say somewhere between 250 and 350, and, 350, stops to do that. Most of the time, it's gonna be a half an hour. He could set up appointments where he can hit, certain areas. And especially in, like, say, 13th Avenue, when you have a bunch of restaurants in a row, he can kind of set up a day where he can kind of knock out quite a few of them in one time.
And how many times a year do they have to be inspected?
Right now, we're anticipating 4 times quarterly, once a quarter basically to do it. And he can spread that out over, 3 months of doing that many of them.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Olson?
Matt, do we do any kind of inspections at this point right now?
We do not.
We do not. Okay.
This is our kind of attempt to be a little bit more proactive, so we're not, waiting until something like this happens and we have a pump go down, and if it goes down at a flooding juncture, when it's flooding, or we have something where we have a big clog and we have a bunch of sewer backup, within a certain area. We're just trying to get ahead of that and not have that happen.
Do other cities in the area have a similar frog program?
There's quite a few of them that do. Yeah, trying to be more proactive in getting that out of there.
Mayor?
Yes, Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you, Matt. I don't disagree. This needs to be done. I just don't think you're calculating the finances right at all. I think that you're going to end up having way more than, money here than we're talking, I think, so.
Yeah, I mean, that could be true, but we'd like to keep that permit fee down so that it's something that the businesses would like to do it. I mean, even if it does cost us a little bit more, it will save time if we have to send a crew out there to do it. I mean, granted, we would charge for that time, but I'd like to keep it so the permit fee isn't astronomical just to do this. And we want to, think of the businesses too as well. So we thought, that $200 per year would be right in there for now, and I guess after a year or two we could maybe revisit it, but I think we're pretty close with that.
Okay. Any additional questions for Mr. Anvik?
I'll make motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. It's been moved and second to approve the changes in the implementation of the frog pre-treatment program policy for fats, rags, oils, and grease, as presented by Mr. Anvik. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Anvik. Item number 4 is a request the approval of bulk purchases of our 2023 water meters. Again, Mr. Matt Anvik, Director of Public Works, City of West Fargo. It's on pages 63 to 64 of the packet.
So this one, we're looking at doing another purchase. We did this for 2022 as well. What we're looking at doing is purchasing about 823 meters this year. Most of these will be for new construction, new homes, new businesses. And it's nice to just be able to have them all in stock, and usually we can get a better pricing when you do it all in bulk. In 2021, I think we ordered 848 meters, and we pretty much used every one of those last year. This year, if we don't use that 823 for the new businesses, we will use the rest of them to finish out our AMI changeover. We should be done now, if we get the smart points in, we should be done with the full residential AMI changeover by the end of the year, and then we'll be working on commercial businesses as well. So there was a little bit of an increase because we're outside of our locked-in pricing that we had, and then with everything else. Inflation's been hitting the last few years. So the total amount that we're looking to purchase these meters for is $363,641. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Andrick. Commissioners, questions?
Make motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Simmons seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the bulk purchase of 823 water meters for 2023 as presented by Mr. Andrick. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Commissioners. Next order of business is item number 5, and that's the approval of a purchase of a replacement salt sand truck to be presented this evening by Mr. Matt Andrick, Director of Public Works. Mr. Andrick.
Thank you, Commissioner President. Last one that I'll be up here tonight, I promise. So, during the last kind of large snowstorm we had one of our sand salt trucks break down. That truck was a 2003 model, so it's 20 years old. It's been kind of patched together for a while, and repairs for that particular unit can be about $20,000. So we were looking at trying to replace that. It's one of our vital pieces that we need, because right now we normally run 5 sand salt trucks around town, and with that being down, we only have 4. And we haven't added another one. We should actually have 6. We haven't added another additional vehicle since 2011, and we've added quite a few miles of road since then. So we've been kind of stretching it with 5 the last few years, and now being down to 4, that was a little bit too much. We really could have used it last week. With that heavy snowfall, we really saw that difference not having that unit. Plus, we had an additional 2 units go down that night, so we were down to 2, so that wasn't much fun. But we did find a 2018 model that basically is the same exact units that we use down in Minnesota that we can get for $158,800. I think there's a typo there. That's way too many zeros on there. But the whole point, we were trying to get on a vehicle schedule, and we were originally planning to, ask for 2 of these sand salt trucks coming in the 24 budget. Being able to purchase this vehicle now for the $158,000, we'll still get 5 to 7 years out of it, and it'll fit right into our replacement schedule a lot better than bringing 2 brand new trucks in at one time. At that point now, we'll have a 2009 model, 2011, and then a couple 2019s. We're going to get rid of the 2009 probably next year, so that way we can spread that out, so we're not asking for $600,000 every few years to replace 2 at a time. We can try and get those life cycles out of there, because you usually can get about 10 years on those. And they also will double. We can take that salt sand spreader out of there, and we can use those as trucks to haul in the summer as well. So it's kind of a dual use. This one does come with a plow and a wing on it as well. And I got a brand new one that would fit our specs is about $300,000. So this is about half the cost for that. And it's something that we would, have us, if it was approved tonight, we'd probably be able to have it by the end of the week. So it's something that's an immediate need if we have any further snowstorms this year, and then going into next fall, because if we don't have another truck that's approved until the 24 budget, we're still all the way through next winter down 1 truck. So if you have any questions, I guess I'll end on that.
Thank you, Mr. Andrick. Questions, Commissioners? What's your pleasure?
I'd make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the purchase of a salt and sand truck as presented by Mr. Andrick this evening for the sum of $158,800. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Randwick.
Thank you.
Item number 6 is a P3 development in conjunction with the West Fargo Public Schools. This is by Commissioner Mark Simmons, and it's authorized the publication of a request for proposals. It's on page 67 to 95 through 95 in your packet. Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a P3 development in conjunction with the West Fargo Public Schools. It's the land we're referring to west of the West Fargo Public Schools hockey arena out at the lights. This is all about adding a non-taxable land onto the tax rolls. So it's a huge project. We've been working on this, getting this ready for well over a year now for you commissioners. One of the themes again is creating added tax value to this land. I know I can't see, but I'm assuming Mr. Bachmeyer is in the audience, and hopefully he'll add a few words when I'm done. One of the things I want to emphasize here also is that we are just approving a request for a proposal. We're not signing anything tonight. So that's all this is. The other thing, again, I want to stress is that this is a once in probably a lifetime to get this land onto the tax rolls. The school district, we've been told, will never sell this land to an individual. I don't believe they can, so this is the only way to do it. So hopefully we can get this rolling and we get some RFPs back. And again, we'll just take a look at those and they will come back to the commission. Having said that, I'll turn this over to, I believe, Dustin, and then he'll probably turn it over to John. Dustin?
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. We do have with us this evening Mr. Levi Bachmeyer, the business manager for the West Fargo Public Schools. So, Mr. Scott, do you have something, or do we invite Mr. Bachmeyer back to the microphone?
Yes, I would certainly invite Mr. Bachmeyer.
Okay, good. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner President Dardis, City Commissioners, Levi Bachmeyer, Business Manager for the School District. I think Commissioner Simmons laid it out well. The original kind of inspiration for this conversation was the school district preparing for its long-range facility planning task force, which we're grateful to have several members in this room serving on, representing the city. That process kicked off last school year, and one of the areas that we had identified was the land surrounding the West Fargo Sports Arena, just west of the lights. The conversation has gone on for well over a year with the city. I think Commissioner Simmons laid it out well. Obviously, our mission is to educate all students for tomorrow's world. And beyond that, we want to get out of the way of the private sector. And I would say we have a almost moral imperative to get some of this land back on the tax rolls to help reduce the impact of property taxes across all taxing entities. And I think there's a really great opportunity here to potentially add some amenities to our community. The task force has met on and discussed this topic specifically. This West Fargo Sports Arena was built in 2017 and was designed and was built with 2 sheets of ice, but maintains the infrastructure to operate a 3rd sheet. Our task force has determined that it would be more advantageous to explore a partnership with the city and some additional private development. There's a separate conversation with the Park District about a contribution for an additional sheet of ice at the Veterans Memorial Arena, just next to West Fargo High School. So I'd be happy to stand for any questions that any commissioners may have, but it's our hope that through this unique opportunity in Century Code to enter into a public-private partnership, which the school district does not have. You might be wondering, why am I here? Why is the school district here? Not only wanting to further partnerships with the city wherever we can. School district says political subdivisions do not have the authority to enter into public-private partnerships like cities do, and so hence the need for collaboration, hence the need for the JPA, which both governing bodies have previously approved. And as the commissioner said, this isn't committing to any specific project. I like to think of this as a similar exercise that the city of Fargo went through some months ago, putting out an RFP and really turning it over to the private sector for us to then review collectively, the city and the school district, how do we maximize the taxable value and ultimately the amenities that can support our community.
Thank you, Mr. Bachmeyer. Any questions? Okay. What's your pleasure, commissioners?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'd make a motion to approve, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the P3 development in conjunction with the West Fargo Public Schools as presented this evening by Mr. Bachmeyer and Commissioner Simmons. And it's to authorize the publication of the request for proposals. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Bachmeyer, for joining us this evening. Item number 7 is the Economic Development Advisory Committee positions, is to approve 2 nominees for the open EDAC positions, Economic Development Advisory Committee. It's on page 96 of your packet, and we're going to welcome to the podium Casey Sanders Berglund, Director of Economic Development for the City of West Fargo. Matt, don't look so darn happy over there.
I don't know if I'm qualified for that job. Thank you. Good evening, Commissioner, President Dardis, Commissioners. I have 2 nominated individuals to take on 2 of the 3 open positions on our Economic Development Advisory Committee. Jeff Volk, who is retired, but formerly from Moore Engineering. I had a lengthy conversation with him about coming back to the committee and his interest and passion for the city. So he would be willing to accept, if approved, taking on the sector or industry area of construction or engineering, as well as Nicholas Killeran, who owns the business Great North Insurance, would look at participating on the committee in the sector of small business owner in the city of West Fargo. With that, I would stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Berglund. Commissioners?
I just have a comment, Mayor, if I could.
Commissioner George, then Commissioner Simmons.
Just a quick comment as well about Nicholas Killeran. I don't know him, but I know his wife, and I know the great things they've done for the community with the Great North Pole charity, and it's a fantastic family, so I was excited to see his name on there.
Thank you.
Commissioner Simmons.
I just want to make and I'm sure, Mayor, you will follow me on this one, but I want to welcome Jeff Volk back to this committee. I think he did a great job in the past, and I'm so glad he's coming back on again.
Couldn't agree more. And I know Nicholas Killeran. I've met him a number of times. A fine gentleman, and I think it'd be a welcome addition to your EDAC board.
I would make the motion that we approve both the gentlemen.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the nominees of Jeff Volk and Nicholas Killeran as members of the Economic Development Advisory Committee as presented by Ms. Berglund tonight, this evening. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 8 is an infrastructure remediation. Dustin Roberts, the IT Director for the City of West Fargo, is the approval of requested funds for some updates. Good evening, Dustin, and welcome to the podium.
Good evening, Commission President and Commissioners. As you mentioned, the topic tonight is the purchase of some equipment to update the City of West Fargo's technology infrastructure. Over the past few months, we have been reviewing the current state of technology in the City of West Fargo, and we have determined that our core switching, our access switching, our wireless access points, and our storage area network are all past their expected lifetime, and they're out of vendor warranty. There's some issues that come up with that, as far as we haven't been able to receive any security updates on network switching equipment since 2018. Same issue with wireless access points. It's concerning. So we have put together a recommendation to take care of that situation. We worked with 2 local partners and 8 different vendors to come up with a recommended solution that will be cost effective, as well as help improve some operational efficiencies in the infrastructure or in the IT department to make our small staff more agile and more responsive. The request today is to go ahead and approve the funds for that. The funds will be coming from the General Reserve Fund at this time. This infrastructure is designed to last for 5 to 7 years. So the cost that we are asking for, the 674,000?
624,450.
Thank you, sir. That will cover 5 years. At the end of 5 years, we can then look at the current state of the infrastructure and determine if we want to add 2 more years of maintenance on, or if we need to look at replacement at that time. Any questions or concerns? Any clarification? I'm sure you have a lot.
I have a question here.
Commissioner Simmons.
Thinking maybe this is for Tina as well, but did we not budget money for this prior year in a couple of the prior years and didn't use it? Or did we use up them funds as well?
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. I can't specifically say for this item if anything was budgeted or not in the prior years. I just know that there's nothing budgeted for this year, and it's critical infrastructure.
I agree.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Commissioner Olson.
I was trying to go through all of the different,
The quotes that I included,
things like
yes,
that,
yeah.
and trying to come up with your numbers, and I couldn't, so I wasn't sure where all of what you're buying from whom and all that kind of
Yep,
stuff.
absolutely. Perfect. So what the solution that we're looking at recommending is Aruba switches and access points from High Point Networks. They would also be including some labor to the installation of that, since our team is a little bit small. We want to get it done in a reasonable amount of time. We're looking at purchasing Lenovo servers and pure storage area networking from Network Center Incorporated for the server side. That's the recommendation that we came up with. If you would like some detailed numbers for those, I can sure provide.
I was just thinking for the public, you start adding up all of those things, you may not come up the same number that you did.
Yep.
So just for that. And how, if this is approved tonight, which I'm assuming, I can't make that assumption, but how soon would this be put in place and be rocking and rolling?
Unfortunately, with the supply chains, we're looking at anywhere between 8 and 12 months before we can actually receive switching.
Oofda.
We can get access points, we've been told, in maybe 2 months, but we do have a wait for the hardware. That is another concern. The equipment that we have now, if we have failures on switches, we're out of replacements. So if one does fail, they're not under warranty, we're out of replacements, and it's going to take 8 to 10 months to get a replacement in.
Mayor?
Please, Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you, Dustin, and I'm naive at this, I know, but does this have anything to do with switching over to the 360 at all?
No, that is a separate project from this. Yep.
And when will that be coming down the pipeline?
That is currently under, it's being implemented right now. There's some issues that have run across with it, but it is currently being worked on with a partner in town right now, Network Center Incorporated.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Anderson.
So perhaps this is a question for Tina, but when we're saying that this money's coming out of the reserve, are we comfortable with how much we have in the reserve and how much we're spending? Because this is now the second request coming from the reserve. So I want to make sure that we're good.
Yes, we're very good on our reserves, and we have to keep in mind that each year if we underspend the budget, we just stock that up in reserves. So there is ample money in there for this request as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Anderson. Any additional questions for Mr. Roberts?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. It's been moved to approve the infrastructure remediation for the tune of $674,400.
450.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. So we have a motion and a second to approve this expenditure. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Item number 9 is a FEMA Safer Grant application. We have Mr. Dan Fuller, Fire Chief for the City of West Fargo, and it's an informational presentation. It's on pages 120 through 123 of the packet. Good evening, Chief. Welcome.
Good evening, Commission President Dardis, members of the commission. This first item here is the Safer Grant application. This grant is from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Every year they do staffing grants. It's the Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response Grant. Currently the application is open, closes March 17th. There's approximately $360 million in money from the federal government to be given to local jurisdictions through, the award period is from June this year through October of this year, and the performance period is through 2027. This would cover 3 years of any hires awarded underneath this grant, to include their turnout gear, their training costs, salary and benefits, and everything that we would spend on those personnel. The goal is to help fire departments increase or maintain the number of frontline firefighters to maintain NFPA standards and codes. Currently, we're using NFPA 1710, which is the standard for the organization and deployment of fire suppression operations, emergency medical operations, and special operations to the public by career fire departments. The standard has 4 firefighters per apparatus and 17 firefighters arriving on scene of a single-family dwelling fire. There is a sheet that was also included in here that's an NFPA fact sheet, and the key requirements on the first page, single-family dwelling fires, minimum 16 members or 17 if an aerial device is used. And this is a typical full alarm assignment of a structure fire for a 2,000 square foot home. You'll notice there's 3 other occupancies in here that are all over those numbers. So we're trying to meet the minimum by adding these 15 firefighters to the department. The point of the grant, again, is to get these people in the door, and they would pay for 3 years worth of all the costs associated. We do have a grant writer hired, and we've been working with them over the last year to go forward with this project and to submit a successful grant. There's several regional departments down in the cities that have gotten grants that are making conversions such as we are making with a part-time or they use the term duty crew, but a duty crew system going into a fully career fire department. They've been able to be successful in this grant to help them make that transition. So in regards to our planning here with the department, we do anticipate to add these 15 firefighters over the next 4 to 5 years. So this puts us ahead of where we were looking to get with just normal budget talks year to year as we move forward. We do have the capacity to have these people on staff with this new building, and we are able to put them to work immediately. So the bottom line for the SAFER grant would be a little over $4 million in federal grant dollars for over 3 years for 15 additional firefighters to be hired by the end of 2024, with the city assuming costs of employees starting in 2028. This would get us through a third station as well. So we're just looking years down the road in the planning process. Initially, when I wrote this, it was an informational presentation, but I see that Fargo is putting in for the same grant, and they did have a motion at their commission meeting. So, Mr. Commission President, I'll leave that to you whether or not we should have a motion for application. We're still going to have a motion for acceptance if we're awarded. So,
Thank you, Chief. Commissioners, questions of the Chief?
I would make the motion if that's what we want to do, Mayor. I think we do.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. That's exactly what I was going to do, is ask for a motion. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the FEMA Safer Grant application as presented by Chief Fuller this evening. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Chief. Item number 10 is a write-up pay policy. Will be presented by Chief Fuller, again from the Fire Department. And the discussion is to approve the Fire Department write-up pay policy as presented in pages 124 through 127 in the packet. Chief?
Thank you, Commission President Dardis and members of the commission. Before you is the write-up pay policy approval. Just some background on this policy. It's extremely fire department specific. When we run our crews, we have a battalion chief that needs to be there every day, and each fire apparatus has to have someone in charge, which is a captain. When those positions are vacant because someone is sick or on annual leave or at school or whatnot, we still have to have someone come in and fill that position. Currently, my only remedy is overtime. Overtime is it's specifically at the baseline, base pay $874 per shift for a captain and $1,101 for a battalion chief if I hire back overtime for each one of those positions. So you can see how it starts stacking up. We have 3 battalion chiefs. If every one of them takes 10 days a year, we're looking somewhere in the $90,000 overtime range. And then a byproduct of that is that we're not putting our junior people in the position to learn and get some experience in that seat. And that's why we call it ride up. We're riding up the seat because the company officer always sits in the right front-hand seat of the truck. So that's why we called it that. But through collaboration with our employee group, they see the benefit in foregoing overtime for this and actually having a policy that allows junior people, once they've completed a task book and met certain requirements, to ride up into that position and gain experience for the shift in that position, and we would pay them a differential of $75 per shift. And that's really what triggered this to come before the commission, because we're talking about a pay differential separate from overtime that would still come out of my overtime budget, but still wouldn't be, it's just something very, very unique with the situation that we have in front of us. Some of the requirements, and I did include a copy of the policy itself, and there might be some questions on that, but there's very specific requirements for captain openings that, especially in the way that we assign these, so that we are being fair in the application of positions here. And we're actually, the first thing we do is go to someone junior on the crew to see if they can move up. And then we go to someone that might be off duty and have to come back on overtime. But we're still trying to have this savings measure and giving some experience to our junior people right off the bat, every shift, as soon as we can. There are requirements for time and grade, and they have to have a spot on the current eligibility list, which means they have to have taken the test based on 5 different fire service textbooks and passed that test and passed an assessment center, which includes 5 different scenarios for running incident command and an in-basket exercise that we give them a list of 10 things to do and have them rank order priority what they're going to do for the day, so we know that their time management skills are really there. So if they meet all those requirements, we can put them into these positions, and we do currently have a good group of people that can do it. But we just need the commission's approval to actually implement this policy. So with that, I'd open up for any questions, if you have some.
Thank you, Chief Fuller. Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah, one question that just came to mind here is how much wider then is your pool for, like, how many people would be eligible for this if they're needed? I'm just curious how many that would be roughly.
Right now we have 2 or 3 per shift that could do it.
Okay.
For the captains and for the battalion chiefs.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Olson?
I'm not questioning your math. I'm not good at math, just to let you know, but I just, how long is a shift?
24 hours.
Okay. So it just seemed astronomical for $1,100
Okay.
overtime pay in a shift. But you're paying them for 24 hours straight, so okay. Versus a normal 8 to 5 guy, it'd be only 8 hours. It's like, holy smokes, you know?
Yeah, the overtimes are 24 hours per shift.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'd be $75 rate overtime for a battalion chief to come off duty.
Okay.
Wow.
Any additional questions for the chief?
Good to know.
Light.
What's your pleasure?
Make a motion
I'd
to
make a
approve.
motion to approve, I'm sorry.
We have a motion by Commissioner Simmons, a second by Commissioner Anderson, to approve the write-up pay policy as presented this evening by Chief Fuller. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Chief. Item number 11 is the window treatment acceptance for the fire headquarters. It's to approve the order for window treatments for the CE contract. It's in pages 128 through 130. This was in the original package of bidding the fire hall, and we had no bidders, and so we have went back out and looked for additional pricing. Chief Fuller.
Thank you, Commission President Dardis, members of the commission. This item here is to direct me to approve the contract from CE Contracting for $53,420 as the bid for window treatments. And we got here, again, as Commission President Dardis just pointed out, we didn't have any bidders for the window treatment package in our initial bid opening. So we went and sought a sole source, someone that could do it for us. We've gone back and forth with negotiating this in terms of the quality of what they're looking to put in, the labor and all this kind of stuff to try to make this within the budget line item. It was $40,000 was the allowance. So it is over. I really don't like bringing these up, but here we are today. We have found some efficiencies in our FF&E budget. Commissioner Anderson did reach out and ask me that this weekend. That last package that I brought forward last meeting was budgeted for $200,000, and we did it for $183,000. We took out some of the walkout mats that saved us $67,000. So we're saving more money than we're hopefully putting out in some of these change orders. This is one of the bigger. This isn't a change order, but it is over the allotted amount. So, but we do feel comfortable that they're going to do good work. This is what the architects and the construction management people want to see for this building, and it's 67 window shades. It's a lot of shades. Some of them are very, very large, and some of them are mechanical because they're high up in the building and you can't reach them from a standing height. So currently the FF&E package budget is at $640,000. There is, I think we have $227,000 left in that budget right now, when we do have a number of small items to go through, but no large watch out things that we're looking for right now. With that, I answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief Fuller. Additional questions, commissioners?
Move we approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Simmons seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the window treatment bid as presented this evening for a total of $53,420. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 12. A request by Commissioner Simmons regarding a hiring of department heads, and his request is to have 2 commissioners on the hiring committee of all department heads. Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. I think basically this is a formality. I know that we do it now. I just want to make it into a policy so that it's always done in the future. And the only other thing I would comment is I'd like to see is that when we do this, is that the commissioners are somewhat, I guess, split up for, diversity or what have you. But I'll give you an example of what I mean. So let's use my portfolio, the fire and police department. If we were to hire a new department head, obviously being my primary portfolio, I would have the choice, or you'd give me the choice to be on there. But then Commissioner George as her secretary could not be on there. It would have to be another, commissioner. And that's, like I said, just to kind of mix it up a little bit, I guess. I'd like to see that happen. And that would be my comment to make that into a motion.
Okay. That sounds reasonable. Commissioner Olson?
Commissioner Simmons, I just want to know where this policy would be. It's not, will we make a new hiring policy out of scratch, or it really wouldn't be in a employee handbook because it wouldn't be part of the employees. So I'm just wondering where would we put this policy?
Well, I would assume we would have to put it into the, somewhere in the policy handbook, or else just have it in our policies and procedures. I'm not sure. I guess John would have to help us out with that one.
Commissioner, or Mr. Shockley, excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Commission President. As a policy of the commission, we have a place that we collect the different policies of the commission, so probably draft something up and add it. One thing I did want to, just so that you're aware, when you do a delegation like this, you make that meeting open to the public because the commission is taking action to delegate. Under the Attorney General's prior rules, that means that those meetings are open to the public, just so that you're aware. I know the press watches this a lot. So.
Is that true of an ad hoc committee? Because as Commissioner Simmons has outlined here, if it's a public works person, the public works commissioner would be on there, but the secondary portfolio couldn't. So that's true of ad hoc committees, because that's what this would be, would it not?
Right.
It is not true of an ad hoc committee. The difference with an ad hoc committee is that it usually is, first of all, it's not really a committee because it's usually designated that a person can pick one or two people to attend with them. The distinguishing factor, what the Attorney General says, is when the commission takes formal action through a motion to say, thou shall have 2 commissioners present, that's a formal delegation of power. And because it's a formal delegation of power, it becomes open meeting. It's not a big deal. I just want to make sure that you're aware that it would be open to the public. I don't know if anybody would attend, but just so that you're aware.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley.
Mayor?
Yes, sir. Mr. Simmons?
Thank you, Mayor. I know in the past we've done it anyway, and we've actually delegated, so technically we've already had this. This is nothing new, and they were open to the public, just nobody showed up.
So, did you offer an emotion, Commissioner?
I did.
All right. So we have a motion to approve the request to have 2 commissioners on the hiring committees of department heads. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded. Again, we have a motion that with regard to hiring department heads, at least 2 city commissioners be on the hiring committee. Is there any further discussion? Please, Commissioner Wilson.
So, to our attorney's comments, would then the commission would have to appoint the 2 commissioners, or would we direct our city administrator to select with that premise being in mind? Because then it becomes a different animal, so to speak. So if there was to be a new department head that we needed to hire, if the commission directed the city administrator to select 2 commissioners to be on it, then it would not become a public meeting as I understood it.
Great question. And I'll go back to the originator of the motion for clarification. Commissioner Simmons, do you have clarification for that comment by Commissioner Olson?
Well, I want to remind Commissioner Olson that, and I don't know if it was the last time we hired someone, but the time before that, Mayor, you recommended the 2 people to be on the committee. We've always recommended from the commission for 2 commissioners. This, again, and you've always done it. So technically, those were open meetings as well. Just nobody showed up. I don't think this is any different. The only difference is we're making sure that both portfolio and secondary are not on the same committee. That's the only change that we're really making here.
All right, very good.
Does
Does that clarify?
I have a
Commissioner
question
Olson?
then. When we did have any openings for a department head, I suppose like Dustin, you probably would have been the last one. Did we actually advertise that those meetings were being held?
No, we did not.
I didn't think so.
But to Mr. Shockley's advice, in the future, we would have to.
We would, yeah.
Yes, sir.
I have a
Commissioner
couple
George,
questions.
please.
So with that, I mean, would we say city administrator, or would we say the mayor, or do we have a preference on that as far as appointments? And then as far as being on different, like, primary portfolio versus secondary portfolio, is that a recommendation or a, like a requirement? Yeah.
That was in
So
the motion. That is in Commissioner Simmons' motion,
Okay.
that not both commissioners from a primary or secondary portfolio be on that hiring.
So then it would go to the primary to have the first right of refusal. type of
Correct.
situation.
And I would say that the mayor would be the one that would decide that. Or you know what I mean? You'd be the one to bring it up, Mayor Dardis.
So is that part of the motion then, that the mayor would
Yeah,
then be
yes,
appointing?
I'm sorry, yes, Commissioner George.
Okay.
Any additional questions? Again, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any additional comments? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Item number 13 is the performance reviews. Commissioner Simmons, again, a request to reinstate performance reviews. Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, in past years, we used to always do performance reviews, and we stopped doing them a few years ago. I just like to bring back a formal written performance review at least once a year. I think that's crucial, and I think we need to do that. I think that'll help everybody.
When you say performance reviews, we have hundreds of employees, Commissioner. Are you looking for a
Yes.
performance review on department heads, your performance reviews on all employees?
Well, so from my understanding, I've been in business a long time, and Mayor, you have as well. Normally, to me, it would be the supervisors would do performance reviews on their sector, their employees, and the department heads would do it on the supervisors, and our city administrator would do it on the department heads, and so forth. I mean, that's just the way business is done. I don't know. We used to do it like that. It wasn't a problem, and then we stopped doing it. So I just think we need to bring them back.
So again, for clarification, you're asking for a performance review on every employee. Well, whoever their supervisor would do a performance review on that employee.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Mr. Shockley has his hand up, please.
That is, thank you, Mr. Commission President. That is a HR policy, so that would need to be added to the HR manual for the employees. What I would suggest is if that's what the commission wants, that you would, as part of the motion, direct staff to prepare an amendment to the employee manual and bring that back for formal approval by the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Any questions, comments? Commissioner Olson?
The way I understand it, there is a type of performance review that goes on a daily, monthly, weekly, whenever a situation arises, whether it be a positive aspect of their job versus a negative aspect of their job, and this is documented in the employees' folder or whatever, however we keep it. So I'm just wondering, what do you expect, Commissioner Simmons, at the end result of this to be, other than what we're doing right now?
Well, Commissioner Olson, we just let go how many people in the finance department. You show me their file where it shows something's in there. Can you do that?
Well, I'm not going to get involved with that right now.
Well, you brought it up, Commissioner Olson.
I didn't bring up that department. I'm just saying,
Any-
at the end of, I like what our attorney said, that we bring this to the city administrator and HR department to come up with a plan, and then we bring it back for us to review.
I am fine, having them do that, but again, I want to make a formal, I want to have written performance reviews. That's where I'm going with this, and they can, by all means, figure out how to do it. I'm saying I want them to implement it. Our job is to make policies, and theirs is to implement it. So my motion would be to have the uh, city administrator and HR go back and figure out how to implement these formal written performance reviews. How's that?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'm looking for our HR director. She's not in the room this evening. So, Mrs. Fish, do you have any comments on this?
No, I do not.
All right. So we have a motion and a second to direct our city administrator and our HR director to create a performance review. And in including in that, one would take a look at what we're presently doing and how that might possibly be. But Commissioner Simmons's motion is to also include all supervisory level people that supervise people would do a review on all employees, top to bottom. Am I summarizing that correctly, Commissioner Simmons?
Yes, you are, Mayor. And it's not fair to put this out with giving a timeline for them. So I'd like to, I would give them a month to come back with this, with some type of a result. How's that?
A timeline has been added. I'd have to ask the second if that's a friendly amendment, okay? Within 30 days or
Before.
a certain commission meeting, I guess would be the
Okay.
second meeting in April. Is that acceptable? Is that right? Commissioner Simmons? Do I have
Yes, yep.
information? All right.
Just-
Commissioner,
Oh,
you
that's
accept
fine.
that?
Yep,
All right,
yep.
all right, please, you have something
I
else?
just had a quick comment. I was just going to say, from my personal point of view, I'm a member, I'm an employee of a company. We have thousands of employees, and we all get performance reviews every year. So I think that's pretty standard. I don't think that we're
Yep.
asking anything out of line here.
Yep.
Thank you, Commissioner. Again, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next order of business is item number 14, the city administrator's report. Mrs. Fisk.
Good evening, Commission President and Commissioners. I only have one item to bring before you today. When we were working on the 2023 budget, in working with the enterprise funds, the sanitation department in the preliminary budget included the cost of 2 sanitation trucks. Before the final budget, they had checked into the market and found that it would take at least a year and a half or more to get these trucks. And so they asked the commission to approve ordering the trucks, and then they would take possession in '24, and it would be in the '24 budget. Well, they've been fortunate enough to be able to find 2 trucks. And Matt Anvik can give you more detail, or Dustin can give you more detail, but they're able to pick these trucks up, and considering that they have numerous breakdowns and an expanding route, I would recommend that you would allow the sanitation department to purchase these 2 trucks and include them into the 2023 budget.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisk. Questions for Mrs. Fisk or Mr. Anvik? Please join us. Matt. Commissioner Olson.
So these were in the 2022 budget or 24 budget?
These were in the 23 budget.
23
We
budget.
put them in there, discussing with Jim at the time when we were doing the budgets, being the market so hit and miss on where everything's going, because they're telling us it's 12 months out, 24 months, and what we were getting was 18 to 24 months. When we went through, we went basically the approval to order, because we didn't know whether we were gonna get them in 23, we were gonna get them in 24, we were gonna get them in 25. So we got that approval to go forward, I guess my understanding, move forward to order them with the thought that they were gonna be like in '24, probably at the earliest. And we didn't, I guess, earmark those funds for a certain year because we didn't know exactly where we wanted to. If that was the game we were planning, instead of saying, okay, we're gonna earmark everything for '23, we didn't get them in '23, then we have to keep carrying that over. And so this way, it kind of left it open-ended to see where we were. What happened is we put our order in, and I think about a month later or so, our vendor called and said, hey, we had 2 cancel out that are your specs. Do you want them? And it's one of those things where we can get them now. It'll help us immensely more than if we have to wait a year or 2 years. I mean, right now, we're 2 breakdowns away from maybe not picking up all our commercial customers in a day. Our trucks, you know, it's gonna save us in the long run to get it now than having to wait.
I thought I heard 22, so that's why I was a little
Yep.
confused.
Yeah. So, quick question. So if we take these units, is that safeguarding us from any inflationary factors that might be coming in 2024?
Yes. I mean, everything's going up the way it is. Like last year, we ordered some of our service vehicles. They had the government allotment. We got in on, I think, 6 of them at the time in April, or right away when we were able to do that. About July, they called us and said, no, we can't fulfill your orders. Because I think we got in, I think they were like 45,000 or something like that we got them in. They canceled their orders and then basically turned around and sold them because they were going for 70,000. So that's just the way it was working. So you're kind of at the mercy of what they're doing right now. So the inflation's going up so fast that it's 15, 20, 30% per year right now in certain things.
Okay. So we are looking for commission's approval or Matt to place the orders or accept them. The trucks are there to accept them and go pick them up. Commissioners?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded that we move up the acceptance of 2 garbage trucks to 2023 has been outlined in their budget. Is there any further discussion?
Is this considered a budget amendment then, or what would it be?
Mrs. Fisk, how would you label this, please?
In speaking with our finance director this morning, similar to the work that that IT will be doing, those are both considered budget adjustments because we're going to physically put in there when they were approved by commission.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Amdick. Any correspondence for us this evening, Mrs. Fisk?
The only piece of correspondence I had was a very nice thank you from the Giving Hearts Foundation for your assistance in their efforts. So, and I left that on my desk by mistake. I apologize, but otherwise, no.
Thank you. Does any commissioner have any non-agenda items they'd like to bring forward this evening? Does any department head have anything that they'd like to bring forward this evening, a non-agenda item? Commissioner Simmons?
Move to adjourn, sir.
Commissioner Olson?
Second.
We stand adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
What are you saying? We're supposed to get up there? Oh. May I address the commission before you leave briefly?
You're not on the agenda, no. That's the way it works. You have to be on the agenda. Certainly, step to the microphone if you want to speak. Commissioner.
I'll make it brief because everybody wants to go home, and this is going to be a long week for me with the snow. And this is still regarding that truck ordinance. I would request that the team or the lead of the team. I've requested that they contact me. The way this revision is going to go through is still not solving a problem that I and other drivers are experiencing trying to take care of your city. You know, you alluded earlier, you know, the trucks are a necessity. Well, when you look at the weather we've got right now, if I have to run around West Main all the way out by the fairgrounds with what I do every day, with 3 or more axles and an empty truck, I'm actually risking public safety. If I go to 45th Street, with the weather we've had, you know, in particular, this is really slowing things down. And I know Officer Booth has asked for an intermediate truck route, and I just think that there is more discussion that needs to be had on this. And maybe I'd appreciate somebody from the team, or maybe you commissioners contacting me directly so I can maybe clarify things better. I've tried, you know, with Commissioner George to do it in emails, and I'm just not good at emails. There's a lot of factors that are moving here on this.
Chief Hotterness, could you ask, request